Now in this session we are going to talk about how to deploy your HashiCorp Vault into production environment. And also we are going to take a look on the user interface or the UI of our HashiCorp Vault. As of now, what we have done, we have started our HashiCorp Vault in a development environment into our previous session. But we have not yet started our HashiCorp Vault server into the production environment. So before we start our HashiCorp Vault into production environment, we need to shut down our development environment. So if you look carefully over here onto the screen, so the first instruction which I have mentioned over here is to shut down your development environment. And you can simply do it by running or pressing the Ctrl+C button, and it will stop your development HashiCorp Vault. So this is my terminal, and if you scroll up onto the terminal, then you will notice this is the command which I have used previously. So this is the development mode in which I have started my HashiCorp Vault. So first of all, I'm just gonna simply press the Ctrl+C button to stop my development mode of HashiCorp Vault. So here you can see I am getting onto the new terminal now, and my server or the HashiCorp Vault server has been stopped, and you can verify by running the command vault status. And here you can see connection refused. That means our development mode of HashiCorp Vault has been stopped. Moving further, the next thing which we need to do, we need to unset or reset the vault token. So this is the command which we are gonna run. So if you remember previously, when we have started our HashiCorp Vault into our development environment, then we have exported this environment variable. So right now, before going into the production environment, I need to reset the value so that that development token is not valid, and we need to unset that value of the vault token variable. So I'm simply going to run this command, and that will reset the value of a vault token. That we will set it later, but as of now we need to reset the value of that vault token. So this is my terminal. I'm just going to clear the screen over here, and the command I'm just going to run is to unset the vault token. So I'm just going to paste the command over here and simply hit enter. Now, after resetting the token, the next step is we need to create the HashiCorp Vault configuration file, and this configuration file we are going to use for our production environment. So I'm just going to walk you through this configuration file and what are the components inside it. The first thing, you need to create this file with the .scl extension. So as you can see over here, so this is the extension name or the file name. So this is going to be the name of my production vault configuration file. The next thing is all about storage. So if you remember, whenever you start your HashiCorp Vault into the development environment, then everything was running into in-memory. As soon as you stop your development server, then all the data which has been stored inside the vault will be erased. But for production environment, we will be storing everything onto the disk. So first component we need to define over here is the storage. And here we are defining the raft storage, and this configuration I have taken it from the HashiCorp Vault documentation, where you can read more about this. But I'll just give you a very brief detail over here and how it is going to be. So first of all, we need to mention the disk location or the path where our everything will be stored by HashiCorp Vault. So we will be creating this directory, that is vault and data. So this is the directory structure we will be creating. So first we will be creating the vault, and then after that, inside that directory we will be creating a data directory. And after that we need to mention the node ID. So this node ID can be anything, but just for the example purpose, I'm just keeping the node 1 as my node ID. So now we have defined the storage and where all the credential or the secret will be stored on a particular disk location. The next component we are going to talk about is the listener. Since we install this HashiCorp Vault onto some server, for my example or for this session, we are just going to use Ubuntu as my base operating system for installing this HashiCorp Vault. So first of all, this whole Vault server will be accessible on a local host. So this is the IP of our local server. So that is local host it is going to be. So this is going to be the local host address. So that's why it is kept as a 127.0.0.1. The next component is the Tls Disabled. So as of now, since we are doing it for the development purpose, and this TLS setting is specific for the URL. So just for an example, I'm just gonna say here that when you deploy your HashiCorp Vault, then it provides a UI, and that UI you can access via URL. So if you are deploying your HashiCorp Vault into production environment, then it has to be secure and you need to enable the HTTPS. But this is just a demo purpose. That's why I'm not enabling the SSL or the security for the URL. So that's why this TLS has been disabled. So whenever we will be accessing the UI of our HashiCorp Vault, then we will be simply using the HTTP URL. We will not be using the HTTPS. So this is the flag for which we need to set it, and the value we have set over here is the TLS disabled equals true. That means we have disabled our HTTPS and we will only be doing with the HTTP. But for your actual production environment, you need to have the TLS enabled, and this value should be false so that you can set the HTTPS URL for accessing the UI as well as the REST endpoint of your HashiCorp Vault. The next component which we will be talking about into this configuration file is the API address, and the API address is just like you can access the REST URL, which I'm just gonna show it later. So the REST URL will be accessible on a which address and which port. So if you are only working internally on a HashiCorp Vault server, then you need to set this value into your configuration file so that you can access the REST API provided by your HashiCorp Vault running on a port 8200. And similarly, you need to provide the cluster address for your HashiCorp Vault, so which you can set it over here. The last component is the UI, so that you can access the UI of your HashiCorp Vault from any external browser or any external system. So for that, you need to set this flag, that is UI equals true. I'm just going to show you the UI because I have my HashiCorp Vault running on an AWS environment, and we will be using the public IP to access that HashiCorp Vault. So that I'll show it later, but just to enable the UI component, you need to set this flag into the configuration. That's why the UI equals true flag is there present into our HashiCorp Vault configuration. Let's switch to the terminal and first create the vault and the data directory where we will be storing the credentials. So this is my terminal, and I'm just going to create the directories where we will be storing the secret, and the command I'm just going to use is the make dir, and I'm just going to create a vault directory, and inside that I'm just going to create a data directory. Now let's create an empty configuration file, and we are just going to use the command touch, and I'm just going to write the name of the file, that is config.hcl. And we can sorry, I have entered the wrong command, so it should be touch. And we can run the ls command to verify the details. So here you can see this is my configuration file, which is empty, and this is the vault, and inside that we have a data directory, and that also we can run by the command vault, and we can see here, we can see this is the data directory inside the vault. Let's clear the screen over here and open the config.hcl in a vi mode, and here you can see the file is empty. So I'm just going to copy the configuration which I have shown previously. So I'm just going to paste over here, and you will see everything over here. So this is the storage, this is the listener TCP address, and these are the API address, cluster address, and the UI. But there is one thing which I have changed over here. This is the address, that is 000.8200, and I'm just going to explain it why. Since I will be deploying this HashiCorp Vault on my remote EC2 instance on AWS. So in your case, if you are deploying it on a remote instance or your actual production server, which will be remotely accessed, so you need to provide this loopback address, that is 000.8200. Otherwise, it will not expose the UI on this particular port. And you will not be access your HashiCorp Vault REST API as well as the UI from the external system. So you need to set 000 instead of 127.0.0.1. So that's the key point you need to remember while updating this configuration. So I'm just gonna save and quit over here, and we can again run the cat command to verify the configuration, and here you can see yeah, everything is in right order. Now I'm just going to clear the screen over here and switch back to the notes which we have seen previously. So now we have created our storage backend also over here, which you can see over here. So we have created this directory, and also we have created this configuration file, and instead of 127 we are using 0.0.0.0 over here. So those are the changes which I have mentioned. Now we need to start our server in a production mode. So if you remember previously, here we were using the dev flag over here. So something like this. Sorry, it should be like dev previously. But now we will be supplying this configuration file as a runtime argument while starting our server. So how the command will look like is the vault server and the configuration file which we have put it over there. So we need to run this command and we need to supply this configuration file as a parameter so that we can start our server into production mode. Now switching back to my terminal over here, so I'm just going to copy the command to start my server from my notepad and paste it onto my terminal and simply gonna hit enter. So this will start my HashiCorp Vault into production environment. Moving further, after starting our server, we need to export the vault address, and this vault address is again going to be your local address so that the vault client can communicate with our vault server. So this is the mandatory step you need to do. So I'm just gonna open one more terminal over here. I'm just gonna show you my terminal over here. So this is my terminal where my HashiCorp Vault server is running in a production environment, and this is my another terminal. This is just, I'm saying production environment again and again, but it's just a production mode because I can't keep this running in the foreground. I have to make it as a daemon thread, or I have to make it this HashiCorp Vault as a service into the Linux system. But anyway, this is just for demo purpose. That's why this is running in a foreground mode. Anyway, I'm just going to open another terminal over here, and here I'm just going to export. Sorry, I just pasted wrong thing over here. I'm just going to clear it. And I'm just gonna copy the command for export vault address once again and paste it over here and simply hit enter, and we can check the status over here. Yeah, it has been running. Moving further, now we have exported our vault address. The next thing which we need to do is we need to initialize the vault. This is also a mandatory step, and this is the command for initializing the vault, and I'm just going to explain why we need to initialize, but there are two components which we will get from here. So once you run this command vault operator initialize, then you will get unseal key as well as the root token. Those are mandatory things, you will need it later. So let's switch back to terminal and run this operator initialize command. So this is my terminal over here. I'm just going to clear the screen and I'm just going to run the vault operator init command. So here, if you see over here, then we have got some unseal keys. So there are 5 keys which has been generated, and along with that we have got the root token also. So if you can make a note of it, then it will be really nice, because we will be needing these unseal key later to access the UI of our HashiCorp Vault. So I'm just going to simply copy it from here and save it somewhere onto my notepad. Now we have initialized our operator inside our HashiCorp Vault, and we have got the unseal keys as well as the root token. But what's the meaning of the seal and unseal inside our HashiCorp Vault? So whenever you start your HashiCorp Vault, so this is the start command. I'm just putting a text over here, but now you know what is the start command of your HashiCorp Vault when you want to run in a production environment. So this is just an example or diagram I just wanted to show you. So you are starting your Vault server. So whenever you start your Vault server and whenever you initialize your operator, then you get the unseal key. So what's the significance of the seal and unseal? So whenever your HashiCorp Vault is started, then it started in a sealed mode. It is started in this sealed state, we can say. So what is sealed state? So what happens is you can still access your directory, the store location, that is vault and data, which we have created. So you can still access this location, but you cannot perform any kind of a read and write operation because it's still into the sealed state. So for that purpose, you need to make it into an unsealed state. That's why we have got those unseal keys, which I have told you previously to make a note of. So we have got around 5 unseal keys. So we will be using those unseal keys to perform this kind of a read and write operation and to access this particular location. So that's the purpose of a seal and unseal inside your HashiCorp Vault. But for today's demo, we are just gonna use the UI to show you how to use your unseal key. Although there is a command, vault operator unseal, but this is not so interactive. So I would recommend to take a look on the UI section, and once we access the UI of our HashiCorp vault, then I'll be providing those unseal keys into the UI as well as the root token so that we can access our HashiCorp vault. So I'm just not gonna use this command, but if you are interested, then you can use this command and you can use those unseal keys also. But let's switch back to my UI or the browser, and I'll show you the UI of my HashiCorp vault after starting the HashiCorp vault into the production mode. One more thing before we access the UI of our HashiCorp vault, I just wanted to show you the EC2 instance which is running onto my AWS where I have installed my HashiCorp vault. So as you can see onto the screen, this is my EC2 instance or the virtual machine Ubuntu which is running on AWS, and this is the public IP address where with which I can access my HashiCorp Vault UI. So I'm just gonna open one more tab and I'm just gonna paste the IP address, and after that I'm just gonna mention the port 8200 which is the port number for my HashiCorp Vault, and after that I can mention the UI and simply hit enter. And here you can see this is the UI. I'm just gonna decrease the size of the screen. So this is the UI of our HashiCorp vault. And if you remember previously, I have told you to store this unseal keys over here. So here we will be needing this unseal key to access the UI for the first time for our HashiCorp vault. Now what you need to do, so if you remember, I have told you to make a note of it. So here it is open in my terminal. So I'm just gonna copy from here and go to my UI of my HashiCorp vault and gonna paste it over here. So click unseal, and here you can see it is a very small text at the bottom. If I can zoom in, so it shows like one of the 3 key has been provided. So you need to provide the other 2 also. So I can copy it from here and put it over here and click unseal. So here you can see 2 out of 3. So we need to provide one more. I'm just going to copy this one also here, and I'm just going to put it and click unseal. And here you can see now we have provided all the unseal keys, and now it is asking for the token. So here we have the root token onto my terminal, which I'm just going to copy, and I'm just going to paste it over here. And after that I can click on the sign in. And as you can see, I can increase the browser size also. So this is the UI of my HashiCorp vault. And these are the settings which you generally get, and you now logged in as a root user. And if you have followed the previous sessions of our HashiCorp vault, so I have shown everything like the secret engine, enabling the new secret engine, and these paths via command line interface. So this is the UI which I have kept it at the end of this first part series. So you can have a look on the UI, and you can just compare like what are the command line interface we have used, as well as what is the UI and how you can like play around with the UI, and also just map those concepts which I have just explained from the command line. One more concept in this first part of HashiCorp Vault is the accessing the REST API from the command line. So this is a good documentation which is provided by a HashiCorp Vault, and I'm just taking the reference from there. So if you scroll down further, then you can access the REST endpoint, that is this address where like our HashiCorp vault is running. So you can access this REST endpoint. Sorry, I have opened another window, but you can pretty much access this REST endpoint from the command line interface. So I'm just going to copy one of these command, and these are the REST API which has been exposed by our HashiCorp vault, and which is used for which you can use it for your development and troubleshooting purpose. So just run one command from here, or this is the curl command actually, and just paste it over here. So here you can see vault is already initialized. That means you can run this kind of a REST API command following this documentation, and pretty much you can put some kind of a validation on this REST API for your troubleshooting and development purpose. So I would recommend to go through this documentation of the REST API and how to use those REST API for your HashiCorp vault. I hope this HashiCorp Vault series will help you to get yourself started with the HashiCorp Vault setup and how to use your HashiCorp Vault setup into development and into your production environment. So what's next after the learning the HashiCorp Vault? So the next session I'll be preparing, it will be kind of a small project where I'll be using the Terraform along with our HashiCorp Vault and onto our AWS cloud environment. So the idea is I'll be generating the dynamic secret from AWS and putting it onto the Vault and along with the Terraform. So this is going to be the next idea for the session, which I'll be preparing and I'll be uploading onto my channel. So if you're interested into the similar content on DevOps, Terraform, Kubernetes, Helm chart, then keep following to this channel. And if you have any question related to the HashiCorp Vault and any suggestion, then please put down into the comment section and I'll try to answer those. So see you into the next session of our DevOps. Till then, take care and bye bye.